Welcome to the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, presented by Gunworks, where we learn about and share long-range shooting techniques, science, and gear.
We would like to kind of loop everybody in on the process and the planning. And
what do we take? What do we do for footwear? You know, there's 0.7 bears per square mile.
They're such a great hitting boat. I mean, they fly so well. And I mean, that's most of the battle is just hitting them where it counts, right?
All right, we're back on with another episode of Long Range Pursuit Podcast. And we've had a little bit of practice on this one for a while. We've been doing some planning, take two. Mm-hmm. And so how do we dive into this? We got four of us here. I think probably all of us have been on the podcast at one point or another. Yep. Maybe just a quick intro for you guys, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, Josh Moore here. I'm the engineering manager here at Gunworks. Mm-hmm. Primarily just focus on design and then kind of more of the project management side of things as well.
Okay.
So
I'm Avery Schmale. I'm a product development engineer. Get to work on all the cool new things and help them come to life.
So, all right.
Yeah, Neal Emery, a marketing, PR, communications guy. Was at Hornady for a long time. Been at Gunworks for almost 2 years now, and loving it here and in the Cody area.
Mm-hmm.
Landon Michaels. I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing my voice by now, so probably don't need to need much of an intro. So this is kind of an interesting one. We've got a big adventure hunt coming up. And so we've been kind of all in the throes of planning and preparing and logisticizing and all sorts of fun stuff that kind of goes into getting a hunt planned. And I think the idea is that we would like to kind of loop everybody in on the process and the planning and the thoughts that go into it. Obviously, there's some rifle choices and some gear elements there, but there's a lot more to it. This is a relatively, at least for most of us, pretty new experience, and there's a lot that goes into the planning process. So the idea is just to loop you guys in, kind of bring you along on the journey there. We'll kind of do this little prep episode, probably a little mini series where the plan is to, once we're on this hunt, probably throw together a couple episodes while we're there, kind of the daily live or semi-live deal, and then maybe some follow-ups with some things that we learned, what gear worked, what didn't work. So kind of keep an eye on that and jump in and get that little mini series downloaded if you're interested. Mm-hmm. So who wants to kind of introduce, give us an overview on what this hunt is?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, really, it's we're going to Kodiak Island hunting blacktails. There's 10 of us total, 8 from Gunworks going. So I guess it's kind of a team building exercise / hunt / gear test, and content acquisition, everything. So it should be a fun experience. Neal's kind of taken head on, planning the whole travel side of things, and he's the only one kind of in the group that's been to Kodiak. So
yeah,
great place.
I guess the two guys from guy and gal from Huntin' Fool have probably been before.
Yeah.
But other than that, the rest of us are kind of Kodiak virgins, and a lot of us are Alaska, like never been. So this is a very new experience, particularly for me and a few of us, I think.
Yeah, me too. Never stepped foot in Alaska, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's been a dream for a long time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're going to start off with the short, squat, small horn deer in the process.
That's pretty much. Yeah. I mean, that's I've dreamed of it for years, and I think in my mind, you kind of fantasize. I think it's always been like that sheep hunt, or like a tundra caribou hunt, or a DIY moose hunt. The little kind of stunted deer has probably not been like that first thought of when I imagine Alaska hunting, but it sounds like this is a really good way to kind of dip the toes in the water, I think.
Definitely. Kodiak's a beautiful spot. There's so much sea life to see. We'll be fishing, we'll be sea duck hunting, but sitka blacktail is definitely first on the menu.
Yeah.
And for as small as the racks are compared to what we're used to here, they're a stocky, stout animal. And, with the steepness, ruggedness, and the thickness of the terrain and all that, they're a challenge unless you get them down on the beach, which weather will tell whether they will be up high or down low. Hard to say. We're hitting at prime rut, so chances are it'll be a good hunt without having to go way up high for them.
So, I mean, we've been spending a lot of time looking at flights and gear and packing and all of that. Maybe run us through a little bit of the logistics and what's gone into the planning. I mean, Neal, you've been obviously instrumental in kind of pulling this whole trip together.
Yeah, so it starts with the commercial flight to Anchorage, like most things do. And pre-COVID, you used to have multiple options to get down to Kodiak. Not so much anymore. Alaska Airlines still flies down there, so we'll fly down to Kodiak City, do an overnight, and then we will fly, in this case, Island Air from Kodiak City over to Larsen Bay, and that's where we'll meet our transport, and that's Nanilchik Charters is going to have the vessel we're on, whether we're going to call it a yacht hunt or a boat hunt or a vessel or whatever, that's where we will be. And it's great. It's we'll be warm at night, we'll be well fed, we'll have a chance to dry out any clothes and all that. They will take us to the beach, drop us off, and in groups, however we end up doing it, do our hunting. But as a transport, this is absolutely a DIY hunt, which that's part of the challenge of this is what gear do we need to make sure we're successful, because all they can do is drop us off on the beach, pick us up, and if the weather gets nasty, picking us up can be a challenge. We may get wet doing that. So what do we take? What do we do for footwear? There's just a lot of things that we've had to mull through, and that's part of what we want to discuss today.
Right. And not in addition to the deer, you've got a little bit of fishing, some waterfowl as well. So a couple things there, do we take shotguns? How many? Yeah, a lot of stuff involved.
Yes. And the other critters on the island, the fox are one thing, but the bears, they're definitely something to think about. We hope we don't have any negative encounters. I think it was you who told me that statistically there hasn't been was it any
That was me.
That was you. Okay, self-defense issues in the last few years.
Yeah, it was actually, I can't remember the exact stat, but it's been quite a while since anybody's been mauled on the island itself. Really? Yeah, and I have a good friend that's been there before, and he said most of the time they'll bluff charge you. Yeah. And he actually said it's a pretty bad deal if you end up shooting a bear, obviously. Yeah. But it's pretty much, if that happens, it's hunt over. Yeah. And you're going to the boat, everybody's staying on the boat, game and fish is flying in, and I mean your 6-day hunt is essentially over at that point. No matter what. So
it's almost hard to believe that there's just been that few encounters essentially with the population density. We were discussing it earlier. We were talking 0.7 bears per square mile. So
we hunt areas here with deer that are at that density.
Just
to put it in perspective.
Right? Exactly. And so the fact that there's that many bears and that few instances just shows kind of the behavior of the bears. And one thing that's brought up is you can hunt them there, so they kind of have that respect for humans.
That
unlike
we don't
here,
get here. They have no fear.
So
it also makes me wonder. I have a strong feeling that bear incidents get underreported here, at least, and you wonder if probably a lot of locals get charged, and it just never comes up.
Alaska's pretty good at the shoot, shovel, and shut up law.
Yeah. I mean, maulings is probably another thing where that probably it's hard, probably doesn't go quite as underreported, but
So I mean, got to be prepared for that, and that brings up more gear that we are going to have to choose to decide which way we want to go on, and I mean, it's just a whole big slew of things that we need to plan for that we don't know about yet.
Hopefully we don't have a follow-up review on how did our bear, pistol or spray or whatever work. What was the pros and cons?
Inconclusive because we didn't need them.
Yes, exactly.
That would be the best outcome.
Would be the hopeful deal. So I guess gear-wise and planning-wise and packing-wise, we've got a 50-pound limit on the charter flight out to Larsen Bay.
Correct. Right? We can take more, but it's 89 cents a pound. So do you want to do that for potato chips and Snicker bars? Well, maybe, but you got to take it into consideration. And obviously we need to bring some shotgun shells, and there's going to be some things that they're going to make it really hard to keep under 50 pounds. So I guess the the challenge is, what do you justify over and above that?
Yeah. I mean, it's nice in that we don't have to worry about tents and, food and a lot of those things where if you were doing a fly-in hunt, like a typical, bush plane fly-in hunt that you've got to carry, you do a 10-day hunt and you've got, 15 pounds of food, probably at least for most guys.
Yeah.
Like that takes a huge bite out of your weight allowance. And so there's definitely some advantages to doing that boat hunt, but obviously some challenges as well.
Definitely. And we do need to bring sleeping bags. So that's one thing that's at least a few pounds and some bulk.
And just us doing waterfall in addition to that, we're going to have, like you said, shotgun shells, shotguns, like some people may determine they need waders or something. And that all adds weight.
Yeah. I think the biggest realization I've had in the last couple of days as we're getting gear kind of done is how much weight I have for clothes. Because when you start talking about tripod, spotting scope, we have a shotgun, a rifle, a bear gun, all the bullets to go along. Like, I won't be surprised if my clothing limit is like 20 pounds if I'm truly trying to keep it under that. Man, it's going to eat up a lot of our budget there.
Yeah, I mean, granted, you can wear a lot of it, right? And that's one hack that we've got is, and it's not cheating anything. It's just the way that weight distribution on the plane is that you can carry some weight with you. So throw some
maybe you
heavy
guys
batteries.
under 200 pounds can get away
maybe,
with that, but they'll probably flag me.
Yeah. But throw some heavy stuff in your pockets and wear as much clothes as you can, and that probably helps in some regard there. If I have a hunch that I will have a tendency to take more clothes than I need. A lot of hunts, I end up packing a lot of clothes and I end up wearing the same dang pair of pants day in, day out, and especially with the ability to do laundry that changes things a lot too.
Yeah.
You probably won't want to do laundry every day, but it'd be nice to.
No, but every couple of days you get the stink out of it and make sure it's dry.
Start fresh.
Exactly. Makes it a little bit easier to get back into the same clothes.
Yeah.
I think one of the bigger unknowns that we're still trying to figure out as a group is boots.
Yeah.
Right? Is insulated or uninsulated? Because Neal briefly touched on the weather. He's been up there and it's been 50, 60 degrees during the day. Was it hotter than that when you went?
That was probably about as hot as it got, but we could have anything from sun and warm to rain, likely rain. I mean, we got to plan on rain, but we could also, and hopefully we'll have a bunch of snow.
Yeah.
We had some friends there last year in, I think it was end of November, beginning of December, and it was like apocalyptic winter, right?
Yeah.
Like 20 below, 60 mile per hour winds kind of thing. I think that's out of the ordinary too, but it could be any of that.
Let's hopefully avoid that.
Yeah.
Right. I guess, at the end of the day, it's Alaska. That could happen probably 10 months
Coastal
out of
Alaska.
And
Right.
Kodiak.
Yeah.
Kodiak is its own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, generally speaking, it's coastal, so it's somewhat temperate. I mean, the ocean kind of controls the temperature there. And so, looking at some averages, it seemed like I was seeing average temperatures in the, high 20s to low 30s for lows and, highs probably in the 40s and 50s kind of thing. So, but obviously it can swing dramatically one way or the other depending on the weather pattern.
And if we get a bunch of snow and all the deer are pushed down to the beach, we're likely to do a lot less hiking.
Yeah.
And if it's no snow, bluebird skies, the deer will be up high and we'll be rucking up the hill, getting sweaty. So it's big.
Everything I've seen, everybody goes into it hoping to shoot deer on the beach, and it doesn't happen very often. And so I think all the stuff that I've read and watched is everybody comes back with a healthy respect to the climbs needed to get to deer day in, day out. So I'm just going to plan on having to do a lot of climbing.
That's a good mental approach. If they're on the beach, take it as a win.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I think otherwise you go into it hoping for an easy hunt and you're going to get sorely corrected, You
can usually find spikes and some immature deer down low, but the mature ones, those are the tough ones.
Yeah.
They don't come down until they're forced down, or we're going to hit it at rut. So that's going to help too. That'll make them move around a whole lot more and give us more odds down low. But we'll keep an eye on the the live cams up there from the Larson Bay Airport and so on. And we'll kind of know before we go if that snow level's coming down at all or not.
We're what, 3 weeks out? Snow level's at like 3,000 feet from what I can see right now. So
it's not looking good right now. But it could change a lot.
So I've kind of determined that unless we get some real harsh weather up there, which we'll keep an eye on, I'm gonna go with uninsulated leather boots, nice waterproof, and run gaiters pretty much the whole time. Reason why is if we are doing the hiking, I'm gonna be comfortable in those uninsulated boots. But then if it gets a little nasty, I can throw an extra layer of socks on or something and try and get some thermal aspect out of them.
You've only got about 7 or 8 hours of daylight, right? Yeah. And from what I understand, most guys are pretty active on that hunt. So you're probably doing a lot of hiking around rather than, just hike up to a point and sit in glass all day kind of thing. So that's kind of the way I'm leaning as well. We'll see how things look.
Yeah. I think the biggest key to being successful will be maximizing the daylight hours while we're there.
Yeah.
Like there'll be a lot of, I think moving around is the key, just covering as much country as you can.
Yeah.
So
I think having, you and I were talking yesterday about downloading maps, aerials from Onyx. And from what I understand, the alders, the bushwhacking is a major, major pain. And, I remember watching something a little while back, guys were basically saying, aim for the tan, not the brown, because it's all late season stuff, and the brown means bushwhacking, the tan means it's grassy or open stuff. And so we may actually, even if we have an idea the night before, general area where we're getting dropped off, maybe it's like pre-picking routes to avoid some of that stuff. I think could be really game changing, right?
Some
to pick
of the tan
a good route
is
in and
taller
out.
than we are too, so you never know what you're going to get into. And that first third of the way up, that is the lush, tall, thick stuff. Where, as we talked about before, bear trails are actually your friend in that case. Yeah, it takes a little getting used to, but once you get up high, it's pretty open, just like here. You get up there and you can move really well, see very well, but you're talking, 1,800 feet before you get to that in some of the areas, at least the areas
day in, day out, that'll wear on you for sure.
Yeah. Especially when like we were talking, a 1,800 foot elevation gain, that's a day trip. We're sleeping on a boat at 0 every night. So we get dropped off at shore and you got 8 hours of daylight to get up to that, hunt around and make it back down with hopefully harvesting a deer,
Yeah.
The math will be really easy figuring out what our elevation gains are every day, right?
Exactly.
Starting at 0.
Yeah. Exactly. Keep an eye on that. But
I guess while we're on the topic gear, we talked about boots. I think rain gear is probably one thing that's really come up. I mean, my understanding is a very, very wet environment, right? So probably having quality rain gear. Other than that, it's probably relatively standard fare for, what we're probably used to for a lot of Western hunting.
Yeah.
As far as what to wear.
I think you got a good set of base layers. You got a good insulating layer. You got a good outer shell and then some rain gear. I mean, you should be pretty good to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said earlier, the two things I'm upgrading on this trip is my rain gear. Because that stuff can just save your life if you're in a bad situation. Right. And gloves. My hands get so cold when I'm hunting and if I have wet gloves on, it's game over for me.
Yeah.
So those are the two biggest things I'll be upgrading there. So.
Yeah. And maybe something that's unique to Kodiak that you wouldn't typically need around here is we were talking about almost hip waders, something maybe light that you could throw on over your boots because you're taking a little skiff from the barge to the beach. And sometimes weather being the determining factor, you might not be able to make it to shore and you're getting dropped off just out of reach, and something to keep you dry before you start your day or dry as you're coming back for the night can be a big impact.
Could be advantageous for sure. I mean, even my understanding is there's so much moisture that the island itself, there's a lot of water too. And so you might be crossing creeks and bogs and stuff like that. So it probably wouldn't hurt to have them in your pack anyway.
I know one thing I got is those Talus hybrid pants. They got the waterproof from the knee down and seat, and kind of just going to extend your gaiters a little bit, you know,
Right.
when you're going through frosty grass, or maybe it got warm enough to melt and now it's just wet grass that you're walking through all day,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, not a full rain pant, but something that, you know, if you're in just a constantly wet environment, they're really great pants for
something
that,
that's,
right?
if you're getting warm, you can still vent or whatever, but it's still going to keep you dry.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah, the mule deer hunt we did a couple weeks ago, you know, it rained for days on end, and I left those pants on. They just were what I wore the entire trip, and they did really well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, nice little waterproof seat in lower half, and stay pretty good.
Yeah.
But that would be one big thing. Another big gear item that I think is maybe specific to this is, like we talked about, motion sickness. Not everyone gets it, but there's a fair bit that do. And little charter plane, then it goes onto a boat, and you spend 16 hours a day on a boat. Hopefully it's calm seas, but not always. So
I've never been on a cruise, let alone something like this, and so I know I get motion sickness. So that's going to be like a mandatory thing for me.
I won't laugh at you too hard.
Right. No, I'm going to be preemptive with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be all right.
Got some family down, and we do some ocean fishing, and I think I have yet to make it through a trip without yakking over the overboard.
The course.
So I typically pretty good about toughing it out, but I'm going to try and make it as easy as possible for me.
Well, full week on that boat. I mean, hopefully you eventually get your sea legs under you, but yeah. And I'm sure it's very dependent on just how rough the water is.
It
boat
is,
that big,
and they can move
fine.
around. Usually at night, if they need to, they can get us somewhere where it's more protected. For sleeping and so on. It's we're not going to be out in the open sea, other than if we do that trip down to that other area and try and find the feral reindeer, caribou. That seems fairly unlikely. More than likely, we will be in protected waters in the bay. So, yeah. Dramamine, bonine, patches, all of that. I mean, we will have all
whatever
of it.
it'll work.
Yeah.
I mean, 16 hours on the boat, 8 hours of daylight. So you get to spend a lot of time on water and plan for motion sickness and just general games, whatever we need to do to kill time.
Yeah.
You know, podcasts.
Yeah, we'll have the podcast gear. Definitely be doing that.
Yeah.
You know, one thing, if it's really cold, I've heard recommended is like spikes or crampons. And I think that was Joseph's recommendation from last year. You know, obviously, they were in very, very cold conditions where even the creeks were frozen and everything else. But that's something I think I'll keep an eye on the weather and might consider bringing up.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But Josh, I think you'd mentioned it earlier. One thing that's kind of overlooked too is tides.
Tides, yeah. I'm definitely, when we get to Kodiak, I'm definitely going to go to the sporting goods store, Walmart or wherever, and get one of those pocket tide books.
Yeah.
Because I was reading an article that the deer will come out on the beach at low tide and they'll eat kelp.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one. If it's timed out right to where there's going to be a low tide a couple hours before dark, I might just come down to the beach and just cruise down there.
Just take a day of beach combing. And,
exactly.
Good.
Yeah, I think that's going to be kind of weather dependent. You know, obviously, if they're forced down where there's not as much to eat, they will definitely eat kelp.
Yeah.
So,
any other major gear considerations?
We can
dive into the rifle thing, but that's we'll dive deep there.
Yeah.
So
I think the other major items for us are going to be binos. BR4 rangefinder, that is such a valuable tool to have in your pack. And then, tripods, spotting scopes. Optics are going to be a big one for us, I think, up there.
Yeah.
So,
one thing with the tripods, not just tripods for spotting scope, but also shooting off of that lower third of the elevation is thick. So trying to pull a shot off from the ground is going to be nearly impossible. And we know how offhand shooting can hinder performance. That's why we have the tripod. And so something like that is probably, we're going to have a couple tripods in each group.
I would, even if we don't have a spotter for everybody, each person probably ought to have a tripod. Even that little backpacker tripod.
If we split up in pairs, we're gonna have one guy filming off a tripod.
Yeah.
Potentially one guy shooting off a tripod, right? So that's
so
one we'll probably go overboard on, definitely.
Pretty important. Yeah. And having those lightweight hunting tripods instead of your big, huge, ones are pretty handy.
I mean, in all honesty, like the tripod is kind of what curbed my decision on what I'm going to bring up there.
Same there. Yeah.
So I opted to go with the Nexus just because it's got that full length Arca rail in it. And I imagine pretty much everybody, right besides you, Avery, is going to have an Arca rail in their gun.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to have to find a hog saddle or something just to make do with it. Yeah. But I know that was one of the major cons when looking at the choice that I was picking. Yeah. I'm kind of not hoping for, but if I would have an advantage if we get up tall, if we have to go way up in elevation, I can shoot off a bipod still and have a light rifle doing it.
I mean, we've all gotten along shooting bipods, no tripods for a long time. So where there's a will, there's a way. And if you're innovative, you can usually figure it out. But it is really nice to have that option when a shot gets tricky.
So he said Nexus. I'm going with the Gunworks Cut, that Skunkworks project. I think Josh was actually lead on that project, and it's just a lightweight climber build, skeletonized action. It'll be in 6.5 PRC, and I'm gonna put a 6+ titanium can on it. Shooting lead-free bullets, just solid copper bullets. Should be a little bit better penetration if we run into a big brown furry creature, or if I see some fox, I hopefully won't rip them in half. So I think I'm hoping it's a good versatile gun for that trip. 3-18 on it. So
we'll be fighting over who gets to carry it if we have to go up.
Yeah. Josh,
yours is in 6.5 PRC.
Yeah, I'm going to be shooting a 6.5 PRC.
What round are you going with?
I'm probably going to shoot the ELDMs. They're such a great hitting bullet. I mean, they fly so well, and I mean that's most of the battle is just hitting them where it counts, right? Yeah. I mean, if you hit any animal in the vitals, and you're using a decent bullet, that animal's going to die.
Yeah.
So I mean, I put a lot of value on hitting the target exactly where you have it aimed. So I'll be shooting the ELDMs on this trip.
Yeah, I'm TBD. I'm really attached to my 6.5 PRC climber. I mean, I've had that rifle on so many hunts over the years. I trust it. I think it's perfect for those deer, and it's light, right? And I like the idea of carrying that thing around. But my hang up is, I guess, maybe two things: not having an Arca on that climber, right? And also maybe a little light if you run into one of those big furry critters. So. I'm kind of right now between that and my 7 SAUM, and we've got some, not to let the cat out of the bag, but we got some pretty cool stock stuff coming down the line where I might be able to lighten up a Magnus really, really well if certain engineers wanted to help me get my hands on something to test
get
out.
Some field testing going.
So anyway, so that's really tempting, maybe to lighten up that 7 SAUM Magnus of mine. I think with a 7 SAUM, I could load up like some 180s, have a little bit more bullet mass for that protection side of things, and obviously it's going to do great on deer as well. So. That's kind of where I'm leaning, but we'll see where I end up. I think either would be good choices, just with some trade-offs here or there.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm going to go with the Nexus also. My first instinct was I wanted a 20-inch and 300 PRC, but with the impending launch of the 7mm PRC, I'm going to go with that. We've got 180 grain ELDMs. I think I will plan to hunt with those, though I am debating hand loading some I'm not even sure what yet, but some sort of a really tough bullet just for walking around in bear country, and I can always swap out when I'm actually shooting deer. But maybe the heaviest triple shock or a CX, or even a tough lead core like a
AccuBond or something like that.
AccuBond would be fine. And there's so many options out there. Just something that's heavily controlled expansion and heavy weight for if you had to use it for self-defense. So we'll see. But I really wanted to go short barrel, and I think we're all kind of going along the same line there.
Yeah.
Short barrel and suppressed. I don't want to go any other way anymore.
Yeah, we didn't even mention barrel lengths, but I don't know if anyone's taking anything over 22 inches.
I doubt it.
Trip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all 20s.
20s
and
probably,
then
and maybe a couple 22.
Mhm.
as far as even suppressors are going, there's a lot of 6s, a few 8s,
Mhm.
6+s.
Yeah.
Trying to keep it short if we would get into any of the brush.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing with these new titanium cans is we can still carry a bigger can, and it's still way lighter than even the old 6 was. And so,
Yeah.
keeping that profile down for bushwhacking, but still, got some good sound suppression and not scaring deer or calling in bears or whatever else. I think.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
What do we got going for the rest of the group? We got something as low as a 6 Creed, but I don't remember exactly where it goes from there.
So I guess we didn't mention, but we're 4 here because we can only fit 4 guys in the podcast, and a lot of voices, it gets a little crazy. But we've actually did we mention we've got 10 people going?
Yeah.
10 total.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So eight from Gunworks.
Yeah.
We got kind of a mix of crew from different departments, and we tried to kind of diversify guns somewhat. But when we break down what we need the guns for, it's kind of brings us back to similar things. Like you mentioned, a 6 Creedmoor in that track Gunworks or Skunkworks rifle. That'll be awesome to pack.
It'd be the best packing.
Folding stock. It'll just go down to nothing, and it'll be a great option. And then we have some Magnus in 7mm,
Yeah.
So
A lot of 6.5s and 7s and a 6 in the mix, I guess.
Yeah, no 30
Yeah.
cals.
No 30 cals. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, with a couple of Nexuses, maybe we ought to bring a 300 PRC barrel.
We could bring a barrel. It's easy to swap. It's
Yeah.
excellent platform for that. It's just a couple more pounds we got to consider about how to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just need to find a dual use for it. So
Maybe
you can
someone will
justify the
have
weight,
less
right?
Snickers than I do. And they
Well, we
can
got to bring
stuff it in their
ammo
pack.
too, so
That's true.
there's a few more
Yeah.
pounds.
Yeah. So it's an option anyways, and if it would come down to you're just hiking along with people, be a good defense gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah,
It would. Speaking of defense, what are you all bringing for sidearms if you are?
I think it's pretty unanimous, 10mm. for the
Yeah.
whole group.
And that's probably as much a function of what we've already got living in and hunting in bear country here in Cody. That that's seems like just about everybody's moving to that 10mm. I mean, you got a lot of some of your old timers still run their 44 mags or whatever, but
Like
those
Jim
10mm are just nice.
I carried
Yeah,
one
144
for
mag.
many
Yeah.
years when I lived up there, but
Yeah.
I have definitely transitioned to carrying a 10. I want the capacity.
Yeah.
I want to change the bear's mind. I'm not as much concerned about trying to kill it in 1 shot or 2 shots as it's charging me. So keep fighting.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. Just the reason you're carrying that defense is maybe not to protect yourself, but to protect someone else. Because a lot of times things happen so quick, you don't have an opportunity.
Yeah.
But
If you need that gun, it's probably to get the bear off of someone, not to get off
Exactly.
of you, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to. You're getting chewed on, and you're not getting to that gun very well.
One topic that Avery and I have talked about a lot, like we've been getting the kydex and building our own holsters and stuff like that a lot. It's like, where do you carry your gun? What is the best place? Like, I hear so many encounters where guy has a pistol, but
It's on his
his
belt
pack
of his
gets
pack.
ripped off or whatever, and he gets separated from his gun. So we kind of opted to build our own holster and keep it right here on our bino
on your
harness.
bino harness.
And, Avery went with a setup that's kind of below your harness. I went with a setup that's kind of tucked in between my chest and the main compartment.
Yeah.
And seems to work pretty well. There are a few things I'm going to change with mine before we go, but
So you've got yours integrated into your bino harness, but it's behind. See,
yeah.
similar idea. I run that, what is it? Gunfighters Inc. That Kenai chest holster seems like pretty popular for a lot of guys. And, it seems like a lot of straps, but I just throw it on. I throw my bino harness over the top, and it just sits right underneath that bino harness. And it actually, flat webbing, it actually rides and carries really well.
Yeah, mine, what I ended up doing is I made my own holster and kind of put it on that vertical strap that connects to your binos, and then the one that goes under your armpit.
Right.
So it kind of formed a triangle right there. And it worked pretty well. The only thing I didn't like is it was a little loose. It kind of wanted to flop in towards my chest, which is obviously a safety thing.
Yeah.
So as long as I can control that pivot, that's kind of what I'm going to work on and get that down. I just like it, how it's so much more compact.
Yeah.
And it's not below your belly, so when you bend over, it's not poking you.
I've hunted with guys that use that kind of below the harness, the bino harness thing, and to me, it restricts movement. You can't bend over. It seems like it gets in the way a lot.
Yeah, that's why I've opted to do that. But
I'm a little bit of a outlier, being as tall as I am. I got some torso to make things
real
work.
estate.
Exactly. So I started with a Rasco holster, like kind of harness, and it's pretty cool. The way they make that is you can actually unclip your bino harness and just carry the gun if you want to, or you can hang it down below your bino harness. And they didn't offer a shell for my gun with a light on it, and I wanted a light just because, you know, living where we do, there's times you can end up camping in grizz country, and to have a light is
nice,
comforting. I don't know if it's that practical, but it's comforting. So I made the shell and attached it down below my harness and made some adjustments where I needed to, but it's been using it all season without any hiccups.
I kind of swap between the Kenai chest rig and then a Hill People Gear chest rig, where I can put my binos in the front compartment and put the Glock in the back compartment, and then I have a little snap-on trigger guard holster there that keeps it, you know, from going off at all, and you just tug it a little bit, and then that just snaps right off, and it's good to go.
Oh, that's cool.
I wouldn't say it's as fast as a dedicated holster like the Kenai, so I'm leaning towards that this trip, but I've done numerous trips in Alaska and other places with the Hill People Gear chest rig, and I got to say it's worked very well, but I have never had to do it super fast. So
you know, I will say it seems like from most of the encounters I've heard up there, they're usually giving you a warning they're coming in. I mean, maybe I'm making too many assumptions, but it seems like around here you get a lot of surprise encounters, right? And I'm sure, I mean, that's it just every scenario is different, but you know, maybe hopefully you have a little bit of warning. And I guess the one thing we didn't mention is obviously our rifles are our first line of defense.
Absolutely.
Right? Always. I mean, if you're carrying a high power rifle, that is a far more effective bear deterrent than a pistol. So the pistols are really like something's really going down if the pistols are coming out.
And I mean, we didn't talk about it, but spray is an option. Obviously it's a little bit difficult because you can't fly there with it, so you got to buy it there, and then once you are ready to leave, you can't fly back with it, so you just leave it there, and it's kind of that lost. But typically we deal with it in this area. It just seems like if you have a nuisance bear, it's probably a good deterrent, but if you have a real scary scenario, you know, south cubs or an overly aggressive bear, that spray is less effective than I think any of us would like it to be.
Absolutely.
And then another thing, kind of on the topic, hopefully not, first aid kits. Another thing that is Josh and I were talking about is making it accessible. Josh runs his clipped
right in the top of my pack.
Like with your attachment points on the inside. That's smart. It seems like mine always, I always carry
Drifts
one, right? Always, but it's always at the bottom of the pack, and that is a problem. You know, if you need it, it needs to be accessible.
I ended up making mine dedicated to my hip belt on my, you know, my hip strap for my pack. And even then, sometimes I get worried because there's a lot of times I set my pack down and go check out a couple 100 yards over there, and I'm just using bino harness, and that first aid kit's out of reach, you know. If I need it, I hope I don't need it, but you know, nice to have.
That's one piece of gear that I'm willing to pack a couple extra ounces in.
For sure.
Like I even go to the extent I pack quick clot. And
always.
I have a tourniquet in there as well with plenty of gauze, athletic bandages, vet wrap. Avery and I both
benefited from that.
We killed a couple elk last weekend, and he cut himself pretty good. And I think I had a Band-Aid and vet wrap on his finger within 15 seconds, maybe.
I just one of those things. You're using a sharp knife, and all of a sudden you're thankful you had a fingernail to stop it from going farther. But
So we'll all take dull knives on this trip.
Avery will.
Josh pulled out his dad's skills and had me wrapped up and ready to keep quartering elk. So first aid kits are something that I think everyone will be carrying, along with some sort of satellite communication.
That's the other thing I think that's pretty key. Because I mean those inReaches have just become so ubiquitous and so useful that don't really go anywhere without one.
And of course we'll have radios too where you can keep in contact with the transport in case we want to get picked up early or need to get picked up early for some reason. We haven't talked about this at all, but what else are you going to throw in your pack? I mean, I usually have food because you never know what's going to go down. Might as well have something to get by for a day or so. Life straw is a good idea as well.
One thing we're doing with this transport that's maybe doesn't apply to all situations, but we get breakfast, we get a lunch like packed, like we make our own lunches and we can take that and then dinner on board. So that's beneficial. We don't have to take it in on the charter plane. But that being said, snacks and lunch and stuff to keep yourself out there. I know we're all kind of steering clear of hydration bladders because it could be cold enough to where hoses are freezing up and not allowing to actually stay hydrated. So Nalgene bottles, probably big Nalgene bottles will all be taken for most of it.
It's all about the smart water bottle, man. I'm telling you.
Those things are.
Oh, dude, it's funny how many guys you run into that are using them, right? It's like it's this natural gravitation. They work so perfect for what we do. Other than not having a wide mouth, which would be really handy. Smart water guys like listen in and start making a wide mouth smart water bottle. You'd sell a lot to that little itty bitty backcountry hunting market, you know.
The one nice thing about the narrow one is that Sawyer filter. I mean,
it's right onto it.
It just screws right onto that bottle.
But they're just so narrow and long. They fit so nicely in a pack. They're durable. Right. So basically I'll take a couple on a trip and then I just reuse them the entire trip, and then you toss them when you're done and get a new one for the next trip. And man, I haven't used an Nalgene in I don't know how many years since
I always end up
started coming
spilling all over the place.
So is anybody going to go as far as to bring a jet boil and some Mountain House or anything, or just go with
not
the
if we
bare
have to
minimums?
go 2,000 feet, and I'm going light as possible.
You know, I will say that's kind of if it's really cold, a jet boil would actually be kind of cool.
Be awesome.
But you know what I will do, and I've been planning on, is like a late season really cold hunt hack that I've learned is, and people have been doing it for 100 years, is carrying some kind of hot liquid in a thermos. And so you know, like a insulated Yeti or something like that. You know, I mean, my dad grandpa back in the day, it was hot tang or whatever. But you know, one thing I like is I've started doing miso soup. Because it's salty, right? Like to me, that is like the best. But you know, whatever it is, coffee or whatever you do, I think that's like, if it's really, really cold, a cup of that on top of the mountain is game changer.
Certainly some pyro putty or ways to make some fire. You know, everything gets wet, but if you can find some kind of fuel. Is there anything to burn?
I guess alder branches.
If you can get underneath and find stuff. It could be a challenge though. It really could, but it might be really nice to midday start a fire just to sit around and while you're glassing.
Just to stay a little toasty. I know I have pyro putty. Cool thing about working in an outdoor company, kind of, you know, we get cool Christmas gifts, and that was one of them. This last year was I think there's a couple different packs of pyro putty and a starter for it. I threw it in the back just for that reason.
And those guys have been great to work with. I mean, we'll all have phone scope setups with us as well. It's coming from the same guys down in Utah. And so we'll hopefully filling a whole bunch of kill shots with those things. And it'll be good.
Here's one thing that I'm still trying to figure out for my gear setup is, I mean, rear bag is obviously makes the shooting experience a lot better. You can get a way better rest, but trying to figure out some sort of gear bag that doubles as a rear bag, so you don't have to pack a separate rear bag. Like when I mentioned that elk hunt, I used my first aid kit as my rear bag on that one, and it was just barely too thin. So now I've got Another thing I carry is a kill kit.
Yeah.
And it's just a gear bag. It's got my game bags, some rope, my knife, my tags, all that. And that's what I'm going to try to modify that and the stuffing in it, and might even try to get some of those silica packs or something and put them in there. That way I have a double use for those. And another cool product I found is obviously trekking poles. Those are a game changer. I highly recommend those, but it's a product called Quick Sticks. I don't know if you've seen those. It's like a cam locking device that basically turns your trekking poles into a bipod. For the most part, those are
like high, right? Which is could be really nice.
Like
right?
a set of shooting sticks, you know.
Like, in all honesty, I might forego the tripod and maybe go that route instead. Because when I've shot, it's actually worked quite well to put those up and use my backpack as
a rear rest.
As a rear rest. And I've been able to shoot some pretty nice groups out to 400 or 500 yards doing that.
Really effective. Really effective deal. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of the trekking poles. I mean, it's always nice if you make a piece of gear double duty, right? But I will be 100% rocking the trekking poles, because especially in steep or slick terrain, anything like that. I mean, if you got a lot of meat on your back, the trekking poles are a game changer.
Those do not leave my pack.
I love them, and they're always the first thing that I neglect to take.
Well, I've been on enough hunts where I'm telling my buddy, hey, you ought to throw a pair of trekking poles in. Oh no, I don't need them. I don't do trekking poles. And then you're packing 200 pounds of meat off the hill in the dark, and they're like, hey, could I get one of those trekking poles? So I'm usually pushing my hunting partners to carry poles, because I don't want to give one up, because one is about 25% as effective as two. Right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So back on the rear bag thing, I refuse to carry a dedicated rear bag. I know a lot of guys that do. To me, I'm just maybe kind of an ultralight junkie, but to me, it's just the biggest waste of weight and space in a pack. And so what I've been doing for a long time is I always carry a down puffy. It could be August, and I'll carry a down puffy in my bag. But that stuffed in a little nylon bag works really well. It's a little bouncier than like your sandbag, right? So it's not as ideal, but in a lot of cases it works pretty dang well. But the kill kit's an interesting idea. I always leave mine flat, like up against the back of my pack. But if you're packing it more in a modular, then that could actually work pretty well too.
I think that's what I'm going to try to figure out for this trip.
There's a never-ending supply of sand when you get off the skiff if you want to fill a bag. Or
save that weight and fill my bag when I get there.
There is so much, tall, light grass.
Stuff some of that in there.
You could really stuff that in if you're going up high.
Throw some kelp from the beach in your bag.
Oh, well,
Throw it
we
out
don't want to
there.
get into baiting up there.
Let's talk about legalities up there. The meat one, wanton waste rules in Alaska are so stringent. You have to get all the meat, all the rib meat, all the neck meat, obviously the main meat groups. And really, if a game warden wanted to tag you, he could, because they can probably always find however many ounces they have to take. So we have to do our due diligence to make sure we get all that meat off of there and get it down to the boat. So obviously game bags you talked about and being in your kit and all that. I mean, we're all going to have some of those. If we shoot them down by the beach, the nice thing is we can get them on the skiff. We can get them to the boat. We can actually process everything right there. They've got, lifts and winches and all of that, where it's really pretty easy to do all of it right on the boat. So lots of options there.
One thing along those lines that we probably haven't brought up that I would suggest is, yes, game bags. And I actually usually don't carry game bags. You experienced the downfall to that on our deer hunt a couple weeks ago, but I usually run like contractor bags instead.
Okay.
And
like trash bags?
Big, really heavy duty trash bags,
2 mil,
right? 3-4 mil.
thick,
Like I think I've got some 4 mil that I just picked up. And I hate getting blood on my pack, and I'm kind of funny about it, but I prefer to just keep all that contained. I usually carry the meat inside the compartment of my pack instead of sandwiched or whatever with meat load carrying straps or whatever. But a thought here is, for one, we've got bears, and hopefully it's a slaughter fest. I mean, hopefully we're killing a lot of deer, right? I mean, we could theoretically each kill 3 deer. I think most of us are probably carrying 2 tags, but very likely there's going to be multiple. This isn't like a go in, kill 1 deer and walk out and be done with the trip. This is like go multiple days in and out with meat. And so even with the game bags, I think it would be a really good idea to have a bunch of contractor bags with us to keep our packs relatively clean for that full week that we're hunting. Anyway, that's just a thought maybe.
Yeah, once we get to the boat, you could always use game bags there to hang it for a while.
Yes, and I think that's important.
Keep the bugs off of it, and it'll be underneath. It won't get wet. So that portion, I've done the same thing though. Garbage bags on the inside of my pack when I'm not bringing just a dedicated pack frame.
I think this time around I'll be carrying both, so I'll probably game bag it and then probably contractor bag over the top to get it out.
And as some situations would play out, you know, maybe you got to think of where you're at in relationship to where you got to get the deer. It might be incredibly easy to just pull the trigger and fill that second tag. Yeah. But I think, Neal, you've had experience with this of.
Yes, I did.
Having 2 deer down in an area that's far from where you need to be.
Yeah. Joseph Von Benedict and we charged the hill first thing in the morning. Went up about 1,800 feet before we started seeing deer. We found his buck, shot it, all is well. We took the time to cut it up and got it in our packs, but we were smoked. We were absolutely smoked going up there that fast. And we saw another buck. Thought, well, we could shoot it. Looking down the hill doesn't look so bad. We can be at the beach in less than an hour. And 4.5 hours later, we're in the dark, dragging a deer, also hauling a deer on our backs, and it was bad. I mean, we deserved to get mauled. It was stupid.
Well, and so the bear risk with that, just the light, right? 8 hours of light, that's not a lot of time to hunt around, process a deer and get it out. And then just, I guess, we're not talking small miniature deer. It's not a Coues deer. It's a
big body, small antlers.
Like a stocky. They still got weight to them.
They definitely do.
Yeah. So
I'm curious, in retrospect, if you guys had taken the time to bone out that deer rather than try and drag it, do you think that experience would have been much different? I mean, it would have taken a lot of time, obviously, to cut it up. But you wouldn't have been messing with it.
I think it would have helped. I mean, it was steep enough where we were, and we were down in Uganic Bay, where that extra weight. And we did not have trekking poles. It would have been tough.
Yeah.
Ultimately faster, because we tried dragging that deer. First, we tried dragging it whole. We didn't want to cut it open. But then the further you go down the mountain, the more lush it gets. So the further you go, it gets tougher where you can't walk side by side, pulling the horns or the rack or the feet. Then it's like one person's pulling the deer and the other guy's got 2 rifles. And how does that work if you get charged? Well, then it gets worse because you get into creeks and deadfall and mud and a lot taller, thicker bushes that you've got to try and get through. And we were tired. We were definitely very tired by the time we got into that. And then it's dark and you got little headlamps and just waiting to get charged. So had we taken the time, I think we'd have been net ahead a little, but I don't know.
Still a tough situation.
Yeah. You'll see a sign if you go into like Game and Fish up there, and it basically says, don't shoot more than 1 deer at a time.
Really?
I mean, if there's a group of 3 of you or whatever, fine, do what you need to, but like,
very tough cautious. Because I mean, you got a nice deer standing there and you got one on the ground. It's like, do you,
if you're
I'm
quick
have a hard time saying no.
I'm a shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy. So I see myself getting myself into something like that.
It might be something. What's the Mark Twain quote? You can learn a lesson no other, like picking up a cat by the tail. You learn a lesson you can learn no other way. Kind of like something shooting deer on Kodiak.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. Got to get the full experience, right?
Yeah. So as far as deer processing goes, I think we just your limits and be as thorough as you can, and I guess kill kits as far as that goes. Everyone's bringing their own knives, whether it be replaceable blades or fixed and just all that stuff. That's something we haven't talked about, but Havalons seem to be pretty popular. I think that's what I'll be running. And then
Not me.
Old
You're a fixed blade
fashioned.
guy.
You're an old timer kind of guy, aren't you?
Too many bad stories about them, though,
Yeah.
really, and you don't want to get medevac out of there. You
Case in
know,
point.
Yeah.
if a Havalon down the road, where you can drive yourself in, whatever, cool. Think about it up there.
Yeah.
Kodiak's not like the Brooks Range or whatever, but it's still
You're
not
still a
a
long
place
way
that
out
you
there.
want to
Yeah.
have to get taken in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm such a big fan of those Havalon that it's just so hard not to. I did just pick up a custom knife this year, and I will say, I've had bad experiences with just fixed blades, trying to, keep them sharp and whatever else. But man, I cut up an entire buffalo with that thing a couple weeks ago, and it was still as sharp when I finished as when I started. So I'm gonna.
Good knife is
that's
hard to beat.
Good steel and well built, right? So I'm curious how much of like sit and spot with a spotter or just kind of walk and glass with your binos. What's your experience been as far as how you're finding deer?
So for us, we had to go way up high to find the mature ones. Obviously, you can, if they're on the beach, you're going to see them, and the power of our rifle scopes is going to be plenty to judge most of those.
Yeah.
If you go up top, it does open up really well, and it's going to be, rut time where they're going to be pretty active. So having to get super serious about spotting with high-powered optics, I don't expect to have to do it much. I think if you're looking for a certain caliber of buck, then it's worth having the optics to be able to judge. If you don't care so much about the buck, you're just looking for something that's heavy and mature. I think opportunities will present themselves pretty well. There's a lot of deer on there, a lot of deer on that island.
One thing we determined kind of in our meetings getting ready for this trip is not to overpack on spotters as well. Josh had a conversation with his buddy who'd been up there. They had everyone had one.
Yeah,
right?
9 guys, and they had 9 spotting scopes. And they're hunting in groups of 3 or 4.
Yeah,
so you don't exactly need that many.
That's a lot
scopes,
of extra weight.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Same time, I have a really hard time going on a hunt and not having one.
Yeah, I know.
It's like I'm gonna have to.
You mentioned earlier the phone scopes, so it'll make it a little bit easier if
It's true.
Digiscoping is huge nowadays, and you can get a couple people all huddled together looking at a phone, looking through a spotter.
Yeah, that's true.
Or
maybe that, and we want to document everything we're doing up there. So there's another case to use it.
I'll be looking forward to carrying my spotting scope and making other people carry my deer. No.
Yeah, right.
Balancing out the weight, but I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it should be good. I mean, the biggest kind of what we were trying to achieve here is kind of give everybody here's what we're planning, and kind of here's what we're not expecting and are expecting, and kind of the whole point of this is to kind of circle back after the podcast and kind of talk about what would I change about my Nexus, and how was Avery's experience with the cut. What would we do different with our gear on this particular hunt? So
I think there'll be a lot of lessons learned for sure, and some follow-ups.
Yeah, I think a big part of this kind of mini series that we're doing here is to help people that want to get into some of these Alaska trips, maybe dip their feet in with a Kodiak trip like we are, learn these new things, and big aspects of that will maybe not be so much the planning for how to do it, even though that's important. The lessons learned, that's one thing that today there's a lot of information that is available that didn't used to be, but it seems like still you could always dive down and do as much research as you want and never feel prepared.
Yeah. These transport hunts are quite affordable for what you get out of it too, which is great, because for the guy that's looking to go, but maybe the thought of having to camp and figure out all your gear and get it up there is just too much. Here, nice place to sleep, warm, dry, and you can still get out and do your DIY hunting. So the value of that is pretty awesome. And we've hardly talked about the sea duck hunting option and the fishing option, obviously rockfish and cod and halibut and so on. That's going to be great. The crabbing may not be too great right now, but who knows? Maybe they'll have some on the boat anyway. I expect we'll be eating really well that week. So I'm looking forward to all of that as much or more than I am the deer hunting. It's just the experience itself is awesome.
And I think one thing that's just, I mean, 6 days can be long hunting, especially if we are going to the top in any place that you go hunting. That can be pretty exhausting, but we get a nice bed to sleep in, essentially. You know, we should be getting good night's sleeps every night. And that goes back to kind of another thing with the travel too. We have a late, actually an early morning flight. And just to travel there, we are electing to go the night before, just to not start the trip out tired, get a hotel room, get a good night's sleep. And before we go, just taking into account sleep is important.
Yeah. I haven't looked at it. Is it 5 legs of that trip to get there?
So 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to Larson Bay.
Larson Bay, and then on the boat out from there.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of
5 if you count leaving town.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different. I think we're all used to starting with all your gear and arriving there with all your gear, but we're going to actually be leaving a bunch of our travel stuff in Kodiak City because that 50-pound weight limit, leaving all hard cases, maybe some coolers, stuff like that in Kodiak, and then going in lighter from there.
And we've built some extra time into this trip, which we didn't have to give all of the extra, but I'm glad we did, because you'll like seeing Kodiak City and have time to go out to eat, all the time we need to pick up other snacks and supplies and shotgun shells. And then on the back side, unless you've got a system down and do it all the time, it's nice to have time to know how to deal with the meat after, and whether you're going to ship it back or just package it up where you can bring it with you on the flight. So we'll have some extra time with that, and that's kind of recommended really if you're starting out doing anything up there.
Well, not to mention having some leeway there if weather delays hit, which is very, very possible that time of year.
Yep, and talk about the Dramamine, that landing in Anchorage sometimes can be nasty. The flight from Anchorage down to Kodiak can be nasty. The little flight from Kodiak City up over, the tallest point on Kodiak is about 4,500 feet. So it's not like you're going way up there, but the weather patterns and some of the turbulence you'll find going up and over that mountain range, that can be pretty uncomfortable too. So
one thing with that, on the topic of meat and getting that shipped out, and I'm thankful we do have a little bit of extra time in Kodiak to sort some of that, but on the boat actually, so there's a little covered area we can do all of our processing, but do they have like stuff to wrap it there, or
they will have like paper and then boxes and tape and so on, where you can basically put it in a box, get it frozen. So it'll be frozen on the boat. So by the time we're back or leaving the boat, everything is in good shape for that. It's just when we get back to Kodiak City, then we will have to put it in coolers or whatever we're going to do to permanently ship, because they won't be insulated boxes.
And then either ship it or check it onto the flight. That's kind of our options there, right?
Yeah.
Seems like a lot of guys opt to just check it. It sounds like the cost is about the same, and it's immediately there, right? Rather than waiting for stuff to...
And there's meat donation options as well, if you don't want to take it all.
We had talked about taking a vacuum sealer up there. Did we drop that idea? That's a lot of weight, obviously.
I'm gonna if I come in at 45 pounds, I'll probably throw that
one
in
between
there.
all of us. I think my goal would be to be leaving with all that meat cut and like ready to throw in the freezer instead of having to do any processing when you get home. I think there ought to be plenty of time on the boat to do that.
There will be plenty of time on the boat.
Yeah,
lots of time on the boat.
Get all your trimmed out and cut and packaged.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the other things we've been talking about is how are we going to stay busy, those 16 hours a day on the boat. And so we're going to bring a lot of card games and various things to do, and maybe not Twister.
Yeah, Twister was thrown around, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys had looked at our packing list, but Jim put in some little Easter eggs. Apparently, I'm bringing Dungeons and Dragons, so got to find a spot for a binder and or whatever. But no, some big heavy games like that might not be key, and maybe Twister's not the best option for a big group of guys.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. So we'll see. Another reason to think about optics, just think about watching mountain goats, watching the brown bears, even from the boat, if it's not too wavy and so on, like you can watch them quite a bit. So another reason to bring good optics.
True.
And as far as fishing goes, we can just fish off the boat at night, right? We don't have to go on a designated trip.
You can fish there in the bay, rockfish, maybe a few others, and some cod, various types, ling cod and maybe others. But the halibut primarily are out of that area this time of year. There will be some, so might catch some. But if we chose to, we could spend a day fishing where we go deep.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it would be epic fishing, but are we going to want to pause hunting for a day to do that? Hard to say. We've got the option.
We're all tagging out, quick and got a little bit of time to kill. That would be pretty
Fingers
nice.
crossed.
And then same with sea ducks. We can put decoys out with the skiff, or we could go to a lagoon somewhere and again do decoys and all that. There's harlequin, there's some goldeneye and scotters, and there's a whole bunch of different sea ducks out there, and maybe you'd get a king eider or something like that in the mix, and we'll have to look at the regs and see what's truly open at the time. But I think most of those are things that we definitely don't get to shoot very often, where we live. So it's a pretty cool setup. All of it's awesome. The sea life that we'll see, there will be orcas in there. There will be humpback, possible gray whales, probably see sea lions and seals, and who knows what else. There's a lot of sea life to see while you're there, so that part's really cool.
I'm ready to go full meat eater and bring my wetsuit and go spearfishing.
You should.
Yeah. I'm only halfway kidding.
I think meat eater
awesome.
makes a season kit even too. You could bring that up. And
what was the episode? They were harvesting sea cucumbers. Yeah. I've done some spearfishing in more tropical locations, but I never tried it in the cold. That'd be different.
Yeah.
I might even pay the overage weight fee to see you do that in that water. Yeah.
Right.
It's a little chilly.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. In the wintertime, and this will be wintertime, but Cook Inlet, which is just north of there and really the same temperature, you have about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Even in a survival suit.
Yeah.
And the survival suits up there are generally more for finding the bodies than they are to protect, because it's just too cold.
Any topics we missed? Pretty much.
I don't know, but I'm thinking a lot about seafood right now.
Seafood. Yeah. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Hopefully a lot of crab and maybe some shrimp. Do they catch any shrimp up there? Is that not really a thing?
It's not compared to everything else, no. But I'm planning when we hit Kodiak City to eat my weight in halibut.
Good.
And then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of something we don't really get fresh seafood here in Cody. It's beef as much as you can eat, but that's one thing that's gonna be nice. And a running joke that kind of got here is I'm allergic to anything that's not steak, lobster, or crab.
I'm anxious to see post COVID a lot of places shut down out there, but there were some really good restaurants, a good sushi place and all that, and maybe we'll find some of those, so we'll have time.
I'm okay with that. Very cool.
Sushi's a little fresher there than it is in Cody, Wyoming.
I believe it. Yes. Well, guys, definitely listening. Follow along. Kind of watch out for this little mini series we're going to do. So, hopefully this is the next time you hear us, we're sitting on a boat and recounting stories about whacking a bunch of blacktail deer and maybe giving you some feedback on what we've learned worked and didn't work, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Definitely. Great.
Thanks for
Looking forward
jumping
to
on
it.
today, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Till next time.
If you like what you're hearing here, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate your feedback and suggestions for topics you'd like discussed or questions you want answered on the podcast. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram or send us an email to podcast@gunworks.com. Also, be sure and check out our full offering of long-range gear at gunworks.com. Use promo code LRP for free shipping on any order.